Hello and welcome to the 21st Annual OCD Conference, put on by the International OCD Foundation. My name is Brian Rada, and I am thrilled to be here right now to interview an amazing advocate for the OCD, for people who suffer with OCD, Miss Maria Bamford.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here at the conference. It's very exciting. My name is Maria Bamford. I'm a comedian. Not everyone can tell at first.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Maria Bamford is an amazing and widely renowned female comedian. In fact, one of the hottest comedians in the United States at the moment, as well probably internationally, no?
Well, I like where you're going with that. I'll say yes to that. I'm saying yes to a lot of things.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. International. It's an international conference, so I would say that you're big internationally as well.
I have performed in Australia and England, so in English-speaking countries, I have some renown.
So when did you first realize that you had OCD, Maria?
Well, I was about, I think around 9 or 10 years old, and I didn't realize it was OCD, I think, until I was about 35. Whoops. So it took a long time, but when about 10 years old, I stopped being able to sleep at night because I had the type of OCD, which is an unwanted thought syndrome, fear of, mine were mostly violent or sexual thoughts. Ooh. And I would stay up all night for fear that I would act out on those thoughts. And my parents, I told them about it, and they sent me to a therapist. And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of knowledge about OCD, and so I would just sleep on the therapist's couch, which was quite nice and therapeutic in its way. But it wasn't until I was about 35 that I Googled it, as you can do now, and found as soon as I put in, unwanted or disturbing thoughts, up came all this information about OCD, and I got some help from a therapist in Glendale, California, Dr. Rodney Boone.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. Wow. Great. In your comedy, your family comes up quite a bit, and I'm actually a huge fan of the special, where you performed your whole act in front of your parents. I thought it was really funny. When did you come out to your family about having OCD?
That was when I was about 10, and my mom thought, I don't think they really knew what it was at all. There's been mental health issues in our family, so my mom thought maybe because the sexual content of it that perhaps I was gay, and I've gone down that road, and it was not that, though that would have been fantastic in its own way, but it was an obsession, a fear. I don't think they just wanted me to feel good and feel better, so I don't know if they had any specific reaction to it, except when I was able to, I think they laughed at the jokes after I wrote the jokes and was over it. Because I don't think they really knew what was going on. I did not tell anybody. And I masked things. I developed an eating disorder, I think, partly in a result of just sort of wanting to numb out from my brain and all that stuff, because I think that can happen when you start drinking or doing drugs in order to be free of the obsession. So, yeah.
Well, that actually leads me to my next question, which is about stigma. Yes. Stigma around mental health is actually a real obstacle in treatment because a lot of people don't talk about what's going on, which is really why I think your act is so powerful, because you really bring that up a lot. Was it hard to make the decision to start talking about OCD in your act?
Once I had dealt with it myself, that was no problem at all. I think the problem was before I knew what it was and had dealt with it myself, there's no way I would have been able to talk about it because it was too powerful for me. But once I read about it and did the exposure therapy and flooding exercises, then I had no problem talking about it, because it is really hilarious, some of the thoughts that are they're so troubling. The other side of that is how funny they are in retrospect.
What was the response been like from the comedy world, and with you talking about your mental health?
Well, I think it's in the zeitgeist. I think a lot of comics talk about it a lot more. Jonathan Winters, comedian, favorite face comedian who just passed on, he talked about it in the 1950s and 60s. And so I don't think it's a new topic of conversation with comedians. But yeah, very welcoming. I mean, comedians have been through some terrible experiences of rejection in some of the most beautiful places in the world. And Lake Tahoe, I thought this was supposed to be nice. Sometimes you don't do very well. And yeah, I've received only, compassion and yeah, and understanding of people, or people recognition of like, there's a comedian, Jake Johansson, one of his jokes is, you ever kind of looked at your dog and thought, he's kind of looking sexy today? Everybody has these weird, disparate thoughts that can be extremely troubling. And, but most people let them go and go, that was weird. But some people have the gift of a brain that likes to latch onto things.
Did you set out to be an advocate for mental health, or is this something that you fell into?
No, I think it was such a passion issue for me. It had been such a terrible thing my whole, until I was about 35, was just, I affected, part of the reason I got into doing stand-up was because of the controlled environment, distance from an audience, feeling like I could look into the light, I don't have to have connection with people, was a very safe space, and also to feel, but in some way feel connected, but in a way that was very comfortable. Like I wouldn't be able to act out on any weird thoughts because, number one, there's the adrenaline, but also there's so many witnesses. And so, yeah, I just, it was just a relief to talk about it. And I felt like I should talk about it because I had been so alone with it for so long. I just thought that was crazy to not talk about something that had plagued me when I felt so alone with it. So, because I was so grateful to find memoirs and books and any information about it where people had gotten past it and said, oh yeah, I had postpartum depression and I was worried I was going to strangle my baby or whatever. And it's like, oh, just a relief to feel like you're not alone. Like I didn't used to be able to spend alone time with people. Mm-hmm. And, now that isn't a problem. I feel like much more comfortable in all my relationships because of the treatment that I received. And so, anyways, it's just awesome. That's why I wanted to talk about it, I guess.
Awesome. Excellent.
And also for the selfish reason that I wouldn't feel alone, because what happens at comedy clubs, then people come up after you after they've had a couple drinks and go, sometimes I worry I'm going to lick a urinal. Sometimes I worry, but I know I won't, but I see it, and I worry about it. Like people come up and admit things. It's like so, it creates a safe community of sorts.
Well, when you tell one on yourself, then it makes it safe for them to tell one on themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find humor therapeutic and/or healing?
I do. I understand. I've actually did a comedy at a therapy conference once, which I think I did not go over very well, because I think there is such a serious side to it. There is suicide and hospitalizations and people who suffer from OCD or other mental disorders where it's just so painful that there is. I can see why it's very difficult to laugh about it. And even my own family, I laugh about, I've been hospitalized before for, I've been diagnosed as bipolar 2. I'm sure they'll have a different name for it next year. But DSM-6. Yeah, so I understand why people wouldn't find it funny. But for me, as a person who's had it, I do find it very hilarious. But comedy, again, it's very subjective, and I would understand if people didn't find it funny at all.
Are you comfortable with being labeled as an OCD advocate?
Sure, why not? I mean, yeah, that seems great. And if I can help anybody with an exposure therapy by, I'm just to let you know, I only took one shower today, so you might not want to shake hands with me.
So what does it feel like to be recognized with the first ever International OCD Foundation Illumination Award?
It's the first ever award?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it
my
is.
gosh, that is really, I'm very chuffed. And I think that's a great idea to give an award for it, because I think there are many people who have it, who are in the public eye, but don't really have a place to communicate that to the actual OCD community or people who are suffering. So that's awesome.
Do you have any advice? Do you have any advice for somebody who's out there who's struggling in terms of coming out about their OCD? Is there anything you'd like to say to somebody who's at home who might be struggling with talking about what they're going through?
I would say, I know it's very difficult to find help in if you're in a remote location, or a small town or something like that. The online community is great. From there, you can make phone calls, do video chat. Like you can reach people. I know that I live, Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, they're just much more resources available. So just really reach out. That there are people who totally get it and totally understand. I know there's so many books out there that were a real comfort to me. I read The Imp of the Mind by, I think it's Lee Baer, and then Tormenting Thoughts and Secret Rituals, or Brain Lock, and there's a number of classics in the OCD, and even sharing it. With family and friends, and to share it with a safe person who knows what the type the OCD is. Because I definitely went to professionals who did not know what it was and were like, "Oh, this is psychosis, and we're going to need to let the authorities know," or something. Which I get that they have a legal obligation if they think somebody's going to act out on something violent or sexual towards someone in society. But that is not that is almost the exact opposite of what OCD is. It's like the fear of. So I guess just to go where the love is, and there's plenty of it out in the world, in Los Angeles or New York, especially right in person. If you wanted to see somebody, that's all I know. I know there's other people, but.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to wrap this up?
Just that I didn't want to come tonight because I felt like I didn't look nice enough, and that my hair was weird, and that, I probably wasn't ready mentally or physically. And yet here I am, and it's all okay. And I got a free soda.
That's the best. I love free sodas. Let me tell you. I had one myself as well earlier. Well, thank you so much, Maria. It's been such a pleasure to interview you. I know everyone here at the International OCD Foundation is thrilled that you joined us for the conference this year, and we look forward to seeing you tonight accepting your award.